The moment his name popped up on my screen, my heart skipped a beat. I hadn't seen him in years, and now there he was, my nephew, but not the boy I remembered. Something about his voice, his eyes, made me forget I was his aunt for just a second. What was happening to me? I'm 37, an online psychologist, living a life that's more about pixels than people. My days are filled with Zoom calls, clients from every corner of the globe spilling their hearts to me through screens. I love it. The freedom, the stories, the way I can help without ever leaving my cozy apartment. But it's also lonely sometimes. I've traveled to over 30 countries, chasing sunsets and new experiences. But my personal life? Let's just say it's a book with too many blank pages. Relationships never stuck, and I've made peace with that. Or so I thought. 2 years ago, I last saw my nephew, Derek, back in America. He was 20 then, a lanky kid with a goofy smile, always joking around at family gatherings. He was the kind of person who'd make you laugh until your sides hurt, but I never thought much beyond that. He was just my nephew. Then he moved to Thailand to become a surfing instructor, and we lost touch. Life does that sometimes, pulls people apart like waves dragging shells back into the sea. That evening, I was sipping chamomile tea, preparing for my last client of the day. The name on the booking was D. Carter. Common enough, I thought, not connecting the dots. I clicked the Zoom link, and there he was. Derek. My nephew. But not the Derek I remembered. His face filled the screen, tanned and chiseled, with a scruffy beard that made him look like he'd stepped out of a surf magazine. His eyes, still that familiar hazel, sparkled with a confidence I didn't recognize. My breath caught in my throat. "Hey, Aunt Lila," he said, his voice deeper, smoother, with a hint of a smile. Surprise. I laughed, trying to shake off the weird flutter in my chest. Derek? Oh my gosh, look at you. What's with the rugged beach god vibe? He chuckled, running a hand through his sun-bleached hair. Thailand's been good to me. You don't look so bad yourself, you know. I rolled my eyes, but his compliment landed differently than it should have. I'm his aunt, I reminded myself. This is just family catching up. But the way he looked at me through the screen, steady, curious, like he was seeing me for the first time, made my cheeks warm. We talked for over an hour, far longer than my usual sessions. He told me about his life in Thailand, the turquoise waves, the late-night bonfires with other instructors, the freedom of living by the ocean. I shared stories of my travels, hiking in Peru, getting lost in Tokyo's neon streets. It felt easy, natural, like we were picking up where we left off, but there was something new in the air. A spark I couldn't name. You've changed, I said at one point, meaning it as a compliment. You're, I don't know, so grown up. Manly even. He laughed, but his cheeks reddened. Manly, huh? I'll take it. You're not exactly the Aunt Lila I remember either. You're like this cool, worldly woman now. I brushed it off, but his words lingered. He was embarrassed by my compliments, and I was embarrassed by how much I liked his. What was wrong with me? This was Derek, my sister's son. But the way he listened, the way he leaned closer to the camera when I spoke about my dreams, made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. As the call was winding down, he hesitated, then said, "Hey, why don't you come visit? Thailand's amazing. I could show you around, maybe teach you to surf. You'd love it." I blinked, surprised. Visit you? In Thailand? Yeah, he said, his grin wide and boyish again. Come on, Aunt Lila. Live a little. I laughed, but my mind was racing. A trip to Thailand? To see Derek? It sounded thrilling, but there was a tiny voice in my head whispering that this wasn't just a family reunion. I ignored it. Maybe, I said. Let me think about it. We said goodnight, and I closed my laptop, staring at the dark screen. My tea was cold, but my face was warm. I tried to focus on the practical, flights, schedules, work, but all I could think about was Derek's smile, his voice, the way he'd looked at me. I shook my head, telling myself it was nothing. Just an aunt excited to reconnect with her nephew. Right? A week later, I booked a ticket to Thailand. I told myself it was for the adventure, the chance to surf, to see a new place. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I wanted to see Derek again, to understand why that Zoom call had left me so unsettled. I packed my bags, my heart a mix of excitement and nerves. What was waiting for me in Thailand? I had no idea, but I was about to find out. As the plane took off, I stared out the window, the clouds blurring into a haze. Derek's face flashed in my mind, and I felt that flutter again. This trip was going to change something. I could feel it. But what? I pushed the thought away, focusing on the journey ahead. Thailand was calling, and so was Derek. I just didn't know what that call meant yet. The moment I stepped onto the Thai beach, I saw him. Derek, standing tall against the sunset, his surfboard tucked under his arm. He waved, and my heart did a strange little flip. This was just a family trip, I told myself. So why did his smile feel like it was pulling me into something I couldn't name? The air in Thailand was thick with the scent of salt and jasmine, a humid embrace that wrapped around me as I stepped off the plane. I'd traveled to countless places, but there was something about this one. Maybe the vibrant chaos of the airport, the distant hum of waves, or the fact that Derek was waiting for me, that made my pulse quicken. I adjusted my backpack, smoothing my hair, suddenly hyper-aware of how I looked. Ridiculous, I thought. He's your nephew. Get it together, Lila. I spotted him before he saw me, standing outside the terminal in a loose white shirt, board shorts, and flip-flops. His hair was longer now, curling at the ends, and his skin glowed from months under the tropical sun. He looked like he belonged here, like the ocean had claimed him as its own. When his eyes met mine, his face lit up, and he jogged over, pulling me into a hug that caught me off guard. He smelled like sunscreen and salt water, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Aunt Lila, you made it. His voice was warm, his arms strong around me. I laughed, stepping back to look at him.
Wow, Derek.
You're practically a local now, I said, trying to keep my tone light. Look at you, all sun-kissed and surfer chic. He grinned, rubbing the back of his neck. Chic, huh? You're not so bad yourself. That travel vibe suits you. I rolled my eyes, but his compliment sent a tiny thrill through me. Stop it, I scolded myself. This is family. But as we loaded my bags into his beat-up Jeep, the way he glanced at me, quick, almost shy, made me wonder if he felt it too. That spark from our Zoom call, the one I'd tried to dismiss. It was still there, flickering like a candle in the wind. The drive to his beachside bungalow was filled with easy chatter. He pointed out landmarks, a temple glowing gold in the distance, a roadside stall selling mango sticky rice, and I soaked it all in, grateful for the distraction. His life here was so different from the Derek I'd known back home. He talked about his students, the rhythm of the tides, the way surfing felt like flying. I told him about my latest client, a woman in Sweden grappling with loss, and he listened, really listened, his eyes flicking to me every few seconds. You're good at what you do, he said as we pulled up to his place, a small wooden house perched on stilts with a view of the ocean. I mean, helping people like that all over the world. It's inspiring. I smiled, brushing off the warmth in my chest. Thanks, Derek. You're not doing too badly yourself, teaching people to conquer waves. He laughed, carrying my bag inside. The bungalow was simple but cozy, woven mats on the floor, a hammock on the porch, surfboards leaning against the wall. That night, we sat on the porch with cold beers, the sound of the waves a steady heartbeat in the background. The sky was a canvas of stars, and I felt a peace I hadn't in years. But there was something else too, a tension, subtle but undeniable, in the way our knees brushed when we laughed, the way his eyes lingered on mine a second too long. The next morning, Derek insisted on teaching me to surf. I protested, citing my lack of athletic prowess, but he was relentless, his enthusiasm infectious. Come on, Aunt Lila, he said, tossing me a rash guard. You can't come to Thailand and not ride a wave. We waded into the warm, turquoise water, the sun already fierce overhead. Derek was patient, explaining how to balance, how to read the waves. His hands brushed my arms as he adjusted my stance on the board, and I told myself it was nothing, just instruction. But my skin tingled where he touched me, and I caught him watching me, his expression unreadable. "You're a natural," he said after I managed to stand for a shaky 3 seconds before tumbling into the water. He swam over, helping me back onto the board, his grin wide and boyish. "Told you you'd get it." I splashed him, laughing. "A natural? I'm a disaster." "Nah," he said, his voice softer now. "You're fearless. I like that about you." The words hung between us, and for a moment, the world was just us and the ocean. I looked away, focusing on the horizon, my heart pounding. "He's your nephew, Lila." But the way he said it, the way he looked at me, didn't feel like family. It felt different. Over the next few days, we fell into a rhythm. Mornings were for surfing lessons, afternoons for exploring, hidden coves, bustling markets, a waterfall tucked deep in the jungle. Derek was thoughtful, always making sure I was comfortable, offering me the best seat, the freshest coconut. He'd tease me about my city girl habits, but there was a warmth in his teasing, a care that made me feel special. And the compliments, they kept coming, small but deliberate. "You look good in that sundress," he'd say, or, "Your laugh's contagious, you know." Each one chipped away at the wall I was trying to keep up. One night, we sat by a bonfire on the beach with some of his surfer friends. The flames cast shadows on his face, and I couldn't stop watching him. How he moved, how he laughed, how his eyes found mine across the fire. Later, as we walked back to the bungalow, the moon high and bright, he stopped, turning to me. "Lila," he said, dropping the ant for the first time. "I'm really glad you're here. It's different with you. Special." My throat tightened. "It's special for me too," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to say more, to ask what he meant, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, we stood there, the waves crashing, the air heavy with something unspoken. Back at the bungalow, I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. Derek was just down the hall, and I could hear the faint creak of his hammock. My mind replayed every moment, the surf lessons, the compliments, the way he'd said my name. I was his aunt, but the way I felt when he looked at me wasn't familial. It was something else, something dangerous, something I couldn't admit to myself. Not yet. As sleep finally pulled me under, one thought lingered. This trip was changing us. Derek wasn't just my nephew anymore, and I wasn't sure what he was becoming. All I knew was that I didn't want to leave. Not yet. Thailand, Derek, this strange, beautiful connection. It was pulling me in, and I wasn't sure I could resist. Our mornings were still filled with surf lessons, but they'd become more than just learning to ride waves. Derek's hands would linger as he steadied me on the board, his laughter closer, his eyes brighter. "You're getting it, Lila," he'd say, my name rolling off his tongue without the ant that used to anchor us in reality. I'd laugh it away, but my pulse would race, betraying me. Afternoons were for adventures. Motorbike rides through jungle trails, quiet lunches at seaside shacks, sharing stories we'd never told anyone else. He'd ask about my dreams, my fears, listening with an intensity that made me feel like the only person in the world. And I'd listen to him, soaking in his passion for the ocean, his plans to open a surf school, his quiet confessions about feeling lost sometimes despite the paradise around him. One evening, we hiked to a cliff overlooking the Andaman Sea, the sky painted in hues of pink and gold. We sat on a blanket, sharing a picnic of mangoes and sticky rice, the air warm and still. Derek was quieter than usual, his usual playfulness replaced by something deeper, more introspective. I caught him staring at me, his hazel eyes catching the last light of the day. "What's on your mind?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He hesitated, picking at a blade of grass. "You, I guess."
This.
"Us." My heart stuttered. "Us." He looked up, his expression raw, vulnerable.
Yeah.
"I know you're my Aunt Lila, but it doesn't feel like that anymore. Not to me. I don't know how to explain it, but when I'm with you, it's like you're the only person who gets me. And I think about you. A lot." The words hit me like a wave, crashing over every defense I'd built. I wanted to laugh it off, to change the subject, but I couldn't, because I felt it too. The way my heart leapt when he smiled, The way his compliments made me feel alive. The way I'd started dreaming about him in ways I shouldn't. But he was my nephew. My sister's son. The weight of that truth pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. Derek, I said, my voice trembling. We can't. I mean, you know why. I'm your aunt. It's not right. He leaned closer, his eyes searching mine. I know what we are, Lila. I've tried to ignore it, to tell myself it's just because we're close, because you're cool, and we get along. But it's more than that. I see you, not as my aunt, but as you. The way you laugh, the way you light up when you talk about your travels, the way you make me want to be better. I don't care about the labels. I care about you. I looked away, the ocean blurring through tears I didn't want to shed. He was saying everything I'd been too afraid to admit, everything I'd pushed down since that first Zoom call. But hearing it out loud made it real, and reality was terrifying. Derek, we can't just ignore who we are. What would people say? Your mom, my sister, she'd never understand. No one would. He reached for my hand, his touch gentle but firm. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I care what you think, what you feel. Do you feel it too, Lila? Or am I just imagining this? I wanted to lie, to say he was wrong, that this was just a fleeting connection blown out of proportion by the magic of Thailand. But I couldn't. I feel it, I whispered, my voice breaking. I've felt it since we talked that night online. But I'm scared, Derek. This could ruin everything. Our family, us, everything. He squeezed my hand, his thumb brushing my knuckles. Maybe it could, but maybe it could be something incredible, too. I'm not saying it's easy, or that we have all the answers. I just know I don't want to lose this, whatever it is. We sat there, hands clasped, the world reduced to the sound of the waves and the weight of his words. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean closer either. I was caught, suspended between what I wanted and what I knew was right. The rest of the evening passed in a quiet haze, both of us tiptoeing around the confession, pretending it hadn't changed everything. The next few days were a delicate dance. We didn't talk about it again, but the air between us was charged, every touch electric, every glance heavy with meaning. He'd brush sand off my shoulder after a surf session, and I'd catch my breath. I'd hand him a bottle of water, and our fingers would linger. We were playing with fire, and we both knew it, but neither of us could stop. On my last night in Thailand, Derek planned a special dinner on the beach. He'd strung fairy lights between palm trees, set up a small table with candles, and cooked a spread of Thai dishes himself: green curry, som tam, grilled fish. It was beautiful, thoughtful, and it broke my heart. Because I knew what this was, his way of showing me how much I meant to him, not just as family but as something more. We ate, laughed, and shared stories, but the unspoken hung over us like a storm cloud. As the candles burned low, he stood, offering his hand. "Dance with me," he said, a shy smile on his lips. There was no music, just the rhythm of the waves, but I took his hand. We swayed under the stars, his arms around me, my head resting against his chest. It felt so right, so perfect, and so wrong all at once. I could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong, and I wondered if he could feel mine racing. "Lila," he murmured, his voice low, "I don't want you to go." I pulled back just enough to look at him, his face illuminated by moonlight. "I don't want to go either," I admitted. "But I have to. We need time, Derek, to figure out what this is, what it means. We can't just jump into something like this." He nodded, his jaw tight, but his eyes were soft. "I know, but I'm not giving up on us. I'll wait, Lila, however long it takes." I smiled through the ache in my chest. "You're too good, you know that?" He laughed, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Only for you." We didn't kiss, didn't cross that final line, but the space between us felt thinner than ever. When we parted, I felt like I was leaving a piece of myself behind. Back home, my apartment felt empty, the silence deafening. Derek and I texted, called, kept the connection alive, but we didn't talk about that night. Not yet. I threw myself into work, but every client story reminded me of my own love, fear, the choices that define us. I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing. Derek wasn't just my nephew anymore. He was the person who'd seen me, truly seen me, in a way no one else ever had. As I sit here now, staring at a plane ticket to Thailand for next month, I know I'm standing at a crossroads. Do I go back, face the truth of what we feel, and risk everything? Or do I stay, safe but incomplete, letting this connection fade into memory? The waves of Thailand are calling, and so is Derek. The question is, am I brave enough to answer? Back home, the silence of my apartment was deafening. Derek's texts lit up my phone, simple things like "miss you" or a photo of the Thai sunset, but each one pulled me back to that beach, his arms around me, the unspoken promise in his eyes. I was 37, a psychologist who unraveled others' hearts, yet mine was a tangle I couldn't solve. Derek, at 22, had become my safe harbor and my greatest risk. One night I called him. His voice, warm and steady, filled the void. "Lila, come back," he said, no hesitation. "We'll figure it out. Together." Tears stung my eyes. What if we can't? What if this breaks us? "It won't," he promised. "You're worth it. We're worth it." I clutched the ticket, my decision clear. I'd go to Thailand, not to hide from the truth, but to face it, with Derek, with courage, with hope. The plane was waiting.
So was he.